Happy Friday, y'all. We made it. It is July the 10th, and these are some of the headlines on BizarreBus.com. Election officials warn of November chaos. Trio of Mars missions in starting blocks. In other words, they're sending probes, if you will. The new film exposing Hollywood's child abuse epidemic. We'll go through that, what that's about. And Trump expected to pardon Roger Stone as he has been treated unfairly. We'll go over those 4 stories. They're a bit long, so I'll try not to make this video too long for you. In any event, thank God we made it to Friday, and all of these headlines will be linked at BizarreBus.com. This headline reads, Epic failure, U.S. election officials warn of November chaos due to budget crunch. So not only are they already setting up chaos if the president doesn't leave the office on his own accord if he loses, chaos with regards to budget crunches and how there's going to be problems counting the freaking votes even. They are already planning this, dudes. Okay? It's coming. I'm telling you. Those who point the fingers are usually the ones doing the deed. Out of Reuters, a Michigan town wants machines to speed up counting of absentee ballots, and Ohio officials want to equip polling places so voters and poll workers feel safe from the virus. Georgia officials, rattled by a chaotic election last month, want to send voters forms so they can request absentee ballots more easily. In all 3 cases, the money is not there to make it happen, say local officials responsible for running elections in the states, any one of which could determine who wins the November 3rd presidential election. Presidential nominating contests held this year in states from Wisconsin to Georgia have exposed massive challenges in conducting elections during the worst public health crisis in a century. Closed or understaffed polling venues led to long lines, and there were problems delivering absentee ballots, and the votes took days, even weeks, to count. Already, we're making excuses. But instead of receiving more money for the all-important contest between Republican Trump and Democrat Biden, officials face budget cuts after tax revenues plunged in the virus-stricken economy. 24 election officials across several battleground states told Reuters the consequences, they warn, go beyond practical headache to the risk of voters' faith in the process will be undermined. Let me read that again, because that made no sense to me. So the consequences, they warn, go beyond practical headaches to the risk voters face in the process will be undermined. What kind of price tag are you going to put on the integrity of the election process and the safety of those who work it and those who vote, said Tina Barton, the city clerk and chief election official in Rochester Hills, Michigan, a state where Trump beat Democrat Hillary Clinton in 2016 by fewer than 11,000 votes. This year's nominating contests have shown that voting in the pandemic age costs more. Officials have to buy masks, face shields, and other equipment to virus-proof polling places. They also must spend more to mail and count ballots. Many officials say they don't have the funding to do either job properly. Election experts say Americans are likely to vote in record numbers in November without a doubt, when control of Congress will also be up for grabs, along with state governorships and legislatures. Dude, it's going to be an epic vote. I was worried earlier this year about all the closures and would they even have certain polling places open? And what if you can't pay the rent on those so-called polling places? How are they going to open? What if they don't own the building anymore? A funding shortfall could lead to widespread disenfranchisement, says Director of Elections Program at New York University Brennan Center for Justice, a nonpartisan public policy institute. We run the risk of people really questioning the legitimacy of the election. I'll get it out. Congress approved $400 million in federal funding to help states hold the elections as part of the CARES Act coronavirus aid package passed in March. That's just 1/10 of the $4 billion that experts at the Brennan Center have estimated will be needed this year to hold safe and fair elections during the pandemic. Since when did it cost so much just to cast your vote? I thought all these places were like volunteers. Who's getting all this money? Are they paying the places to hold the elections? Most of those places that I've ever voted literally are churches. Are they getting paid to hold the elections there? I don't understand, I guess. Maybe if I knew how it worked. A fresh coronavirus aid bill passed in May, and the Democratic-led House of Representatives included $3.6 billion in new election funding for state and local governments. Some Republicans said they were open to considering more election funding, but opposed planned rules to make states boost mail-in voting, and the bill has no chance of passing the Republican-controlled Senate. I've always mailed in my vote. Just because it's either like, that's just what I do. Like, I'm either in the middle of moving or it's always something. But I've always done the mail-in. You know what? I've requested my ballot by mail, but dropped it off in person. That's what it is. So they're talking about you can just drop it in the mail, I guess. I have not done that. So I want to make that clear. I had said before that I've always mailed it in. And I haven't. I've received it in the mail, but I've dropped it off now that I'm actually thinking about it. Trump and his Republican allies say mail-in voting is prone to fraud and favors Democrats, although independent studies have found little evidence of those claims. Hans von Spakovsky, a former Republican member of the Federal Elections Commission who works at the Conservative Heritage Foundation, said officials could cut costs by focusing on keeping polling places safe rather than trying to ramp up voting. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is not going to be as difficult as all these people are predicting, says Dude. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell declined to comment. Amy Klobuchar, nice name, chick, the senior Democrat of the Senate Rules Committee that oversees federal grants, told Reuters, whatever, money was short, so short that funds intended for election security, for instance, were being used to buy masks and cleaning supplies. If you're volunteering to work at the polls, it's one day. Bring your own mask. What the fuck? Bring your own freaking spray, dude. You want to work the poll, you believe in your freaking dude you're voting for, you're wanting to help out. I guess they would have to wipe off the voting machines. All that shit, I guess. If I knew how it worked, I might be inclined to say I know why they're spending that kind of money. Can't people donate cleaning supplies? That's not one or the other's choice. We need voters to be safe, and we need our elections to be secure. Blah. Epic failure. Some local governments are already squeezing election budgets as cities across the country face a projected $360 billion revenue loss over the next 3 years due to the coronavirus outbreak. Georgia sent absentee ballot requests to all voters ahead of its June 9th elections, which officials cited in local media estimated would cost $5 million. Well, why'd you fucking do that? Anytime I wanted one, I had to request it myself. Idiots. The program helped fuel record primary turnout in a state that's been long solidly Republican, but which polls show could be competitive in November. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican. Why? These people's last names are like, you can't, for 2 days. I can't pronounce these people's names, man. A Republican told state lawmakers last month that there was not enough money to do the same for November and that the health crisis had somewhat dissipated. which we know is bullshit now. He instead will ask voters to request their ballot through a website. That's what we do in Ohio. You can do it by mail or you can do it online, I think. I'm pretty sure I did it on a website, or maybe I registered on a website. Dude, whatever. Most county governments in Georgia don't have the money to send out requests themselves, said Deidre Holden, co-president of the State's Association of County Election Officials. If Congress doesn't act, we're going to see an epic failure once again. In Philadelphia, falling revenues have left an election budget of $12.3 million instead of $22.5 million that officials proposed in early March. The city expects $750,000 in CARES Act grant money, but it already spent more than its expected grant holding in its June 2nd primary. Well, quit fucking spending money. It's because you're trying to get seats ahead of the game. And that's what happens when they do those 2-year elections. They're putting people in that are making the dismantle the police and all this bullshit, city council bullshit everyone's voting in on. Yeah, that worked. Not anymore. Without further federal funding, some election boards in Michigan won't even be able to buy new machines to count ballots faster or cover the postage costs of mail-in ballots, says Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. This means that election results may not be available until long after election night. Well, we're just going to have to wait. That's the way it is. Instead of being tabulated by 10 p.m. at night, it could be who knows when. And then you all are going to bitch and cry when someone doesn't concede to losing the next day. Bullshit. Hold out until we know what's going on. Anyway, I'm going to link this at bizarrebus.com. The summer race to land a space probe on Mars is off to a hot start. 3 countries, the Hope probe from the United Arab Emirates, Tianwen-1 from China, and Mars 2020 from the United States have all taken their positions, hoping to take advantage of the period of time when the Earth and Mars are nearest, a mere 55 million kilometers or 34 million miles apart. Everything's supposed to line up like this month, so all the planets are supposed to be aligned, literally. The neighboring planets only come this close once every 26 months, a narrow launch window based on their relative positions in space. Space agencies from all 3 nations plan to send rovers to the red planet to look for additional signs of life and potentially pave the way to someday stepping foot on its surface. I thought we were sending probes, dude. We're sending more rovers, I guess. The journey will take 6 months. The UAE's Hope probe, the first interplanetary mission by an Arab country, launches July 15th. China plans to send its inaugural Mars probe, a small remote-controlled rover, between July 20th and 25th. By far the most ambitious project, the U.S. Mars 2020 has planned a launch date of July 30th. The probe is called Perseverance. It's expected to spend 1 Mars year, or about 687 Earth days, so that's like almost 2 Earth years, on the planet's surface, collecting rocks and soil samples that scientists hope will shed light on past life forms that may have inhabited the faraway planet. Well, how are they going to get them back? The aim of subsequent missions will be to bring those samples back to Earth. All right. Thanks for answering that. A 4th planned launch, the EU-Russian ExoMars, was postponed until 2022 due to the pestilence. Traces of life. Several dozen probes, most of them American, have set off for the red planet since 1960. Many never made it that far or failed to land. The drive to explore Mars flagged until the confirmation less than 10 years ago that water once flowed on its surface. It's the only planet where we've been able to detect past signs of life. And the more we learn about it, the more we hope there is. I freaking do too, dude. I want to see some, like, something. I don't know, frozen water, bones of some kind. That'd be exciting as hell. It feels like something exciting is happening and people want to be a part of it, no doubt. India and the European Union are also setting their sights on a Mars landing. In 2024, Japan plans to send a probe to explore the Martian moon Phobos. Nice. As with the moon missions, different countries have invested heavily in reputation and cash. I can't read tonight. On Mars exploration, with each looking to find their specific niche. The Holy Grail, he added, is getting boots on the ground. This represents the ultimate frontier of space exploration. So far, only the U.S. has done detailed feasibility studies, and in a best case scenario, achieving that goal will take at least 20 more years. A swath of Mars lander missions over the past 5 decades have met with varying degrees of success since the Soviet Mars 2 and 3 probes launched in 1971. NASA's Curiosity lander, which arrived in 2012 and is designed to determine whether the planet's environment was ever able to support microbial life forms, remains operational on the surface, as does the InSight lander, which arrived in 2018. The UAE is thinking even longer term. The oil-rich Gulf nation plans to establish a science city on Earth that will reproduce Mars' atmospheric conditions with the goal of establishing a human colony by 2117. So, the U.S. did that in Hawaii, didn't they? There was a podcast, and it was fucking awesome. It was called Mars something. Maybe just search Mars on Apple or whatever, but they put like these people in a bubble in Hawaii, which would be more like living on Mars. It was like on Volcano or something, and they lived there for a year in solitude, like 5 people, and it was really interesting how they got along, and it was like one French person, one Russian, and I don't know. It was really cool to listen to, though. I digress. Supporting human life on Mars presents a number of logistical challenges. Today, Mars is basically an immersed icy desert. About 3.5 billion years ago, it lost the dense atmospheric pressure that protected it from cosmic radiation. Today's Mars is basically an immense icy desert. About 3.5 billion years ago, it lost that dense atmospheric pressure that protected it, which I didn't know it had one. Scientists are still trying to determine whether the planet was ever inhabited by metabolic life forms. 4 billion years ago, the conditions on the planet's surface was very close to those of which we have had on Earth when life first appeared, including liquid water and a dense atmosphere. Taking up the mantle of its robot forebears, Perseverance will explore an entirely uncharted environment. The Jezero crater, a 28-mile wide area that is believed to have been the site of an ancient river. It was chosen among 60 other potential landing sites and may have sedimentary rock that could induce traces of past microbial life, liquid water, and carbon. Dude, where there's water, there's life. That's freaking awesome. Perseverance will collect around 40 of these samples, 30 of which will be brought back to Earth and studied. Oh, you might be bringing back alien microbes. Not good. I hope you're studying them in a safe zone. A lab, perhaps, I hope. The results of the analysis, while not as far off as UAE's proposed Mars colony, will nonetheless have to wait at least 10 more years. Super interesting. We all want to know more about Mars. I'm going to link this at bizarreabyss.com. Well, let's take a small break to show you the new Bizarre Abyss face mask. Oh my gosh, y'all. You asked for it. You got it. $12.99. I'm sorry. That's the best we could do, y'all. We really tried to keep it lower than that. I really wanted to keep it $10.99, but I could not get it any lower. Offers full Nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 6-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, as you of course know, and $1 from every mask sale is donated to nonprofit to feed the children in need. Comes in black, gray, white, and red, so feel free to check that out. Go to bizarrebist.com and get yours today if you would like to support us. Well, there's a new film on the horizon exposing Hollywood's child abuse epidemic. Thank God, because listen, man, there's a lot of shit going on out here that people talk about or ends up in tabloids and nobody follows up. This shit really does happen. Pretty much all the young men were abused, says the dude that, I believe the dude that wrote this. While fame and fortune are an ever-enticing dream, few things seem less appealing than being a child star in HBO's Showbiz Kids, premiering July 14th. By the way, I have HBO, but the only thing I've watched on it is Game of Thrones and Deadwood I'm watching right now, which is freaking awesome. Oh, and Chernobyl. Dude, that was awesome. Excuse me. Anyway, it's premiering July 14th and certainly reinforces the feeling that few things seem less appealing than being a child star. Awash in anecdotes about the ways in which the industry and the attendant hunger for the spotlight that consumes both children and parents, warps, alienates, and exploits kids is a documentary which illustrates that sometimes being nobody is far healthier and more fulfilling than being well known. I've often wondered that. What does one trade for being famous? A lot. Your privacy, for one. Can't do shit without somebody knowing who you are. That would be difficult. You can't even go to a store or a restaurant and are they really rich? Are they rich in life? I don't know that being rich in your pocket is more important than rich in your life and having joy in your life. And a lot of people don't have that. They don't have joy, actual joy in their lives. Sexual misconduct is a dark cloud hovering over showbiz kids, and it comes to the fore when former Different Strokes star Todd Bridges recalls being molested as a child. A disclosure that, according to Evan Rachel Wood, isn't unique, as she claims. In my experience, I know a lot of kids that grew up in the industry, and what surprised me when I got older was finding out that pretty much all of the young men were abused in some way sexually. She then relays that a recent Golden Globes gala, she watched a pedophile whom she doesn't name win an award, and she had to walk out because she was so disgusted by the praise being lavished upon this monster that she departed. And she thought to herself, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I can't keep watching this happen. I don't know how to handle this, and this has to stop. Why, yes, it does. And I think the first way you do that maybe would be to do a movie, but why aren't you naming names, dude? Are you afraid fuck it, name names, dude. Get yourself some security dudes and, gear up, homie. Name names. The moments are definitely the ugliest and most eye-opening in Showbiz Kids, written and directed by Alex Winter, whose big break came in Joel Schumacher's 1987 Brat Pack vampire killer, The Lost Boys, and 1988's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The film knows whereof it speaks, an opening photo montage of illustrious young luminaries from Shirley Temple and Mickey Rooney to Ron Howard, Drew Barrymore, and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen climaxes with a portrait of Winter himself, thereby underlining that this project is not only near and dear to his heart, but one driven by first-hand knowledge of the kind of ups and downs endured by its marquee subjects. Except, name names, dude. That's the way you bring justice. Considering, and no one, Corey Feldman, none of those dudes that I've ever seen, now I didn't read his latest book, name the dudes that did it. Considering Winter's familiarity with the topic, it's mildly disheartening that Showbiz Kids isn't more personal, although the actor has worked in the business for more than 3 decades and admitted in 2018 that he suffered hellish sexual abuse at the hands of an adult man during the 70s. His own experiences are conspicuously absent from these proceedings. Such reserve is in keeping with the overarching nature of his documentary, which largely avoids tabloidy tales. And Winter's reticence on that front comes across as being motivated by respectfulness. You ain't getting no more parts, dude. And that's another thing. They're afraid they'll get locked out of the club. Fuck that, man. Go work at a grocery store. Tell on that person. Yet it also makes Showbiz Kids seem like it's pulling its punches, an impression exacerbated by the fact that when it does touch upon the nasty side of the industry for pint-sized performers, it does so fleetingly. So it sounds like it might be a bit of a disappointment in that regard. Excuse me. The most apparent in the cases of Bridges. Though he didn't die of an overdose like his Different Strokes co-star Dana Plato, Bridges' drug addiction made for sensationalistic headlines, as did his multiple runs-in with the law, including being charged and acquitted of killing his dealer. I didn't know that, dude. Wow. Nonetheless, those incidents are curiously addressed as if the film were afraid that delving too deeply into such muck might reconfigure the material as a cautionary tale. Many of its speakers candidly discuss their struggles grappling with their new celebrity reality, but there's a sense here that everyone is hesitant to truly decry a system that spits up and chews kids out with startling rapidity and with little regard for the emotional and psychological scars it leaves behind. I couldn't agree more. That's what I'm talking about. Dude, just let it rip. Let it rip. You need to... That's why... Yeah, I'd be taking motherfuckers down with me. That's what's up. If I can't work no more, y'all are going down, period. I'd probably end up dead somewhere. Still, if uninterested in picking at old scabs, Showbiz Kids doesn't wholly shy away from the unseemly, with notable distress in her eyes. Wood discusses being pushed into a profession by an artistic clan and how her success compelled her to silence herself, since she believed that with any complaints, it would be viewed as ingratitude by friends and family. Both Will Wheaton and Mila Jovovich confessed that they too were thrust into acting by mothers who sought to fulfill their own aspirations through their kids. And Henry Thomas remembers the intense social ostracization he suffered in his San Antonio hometown after E.T. became a global phenomenon, and how he was later squeezed out of the business as a teen when casting directors decided he'd outgrown his appeal. Well, there's a lot more on this, so I'll let you read it, and you can check out the show and let me know what you think. I'm not sure I'll watch it because it's a teaser, so they want you to hear how bad things were, but they don't want to name names, so fuck you. Why bother, dude? Like, get out there and do something about it, because they're probably still doing it to other kids. So if you're not willing to put your neck on the line, then what's the point? Save somebody else, dude. All right, then. Well, it's on bizarrebus.com. Well, as the clock ticks, Roger Stone is waiting for some type of clear by President Trump or acquittal or something. Waiting for Trump to, tell the judges he's not going to jail. Convicted last June of 7 felonies for obstructing a congressional inquiry and lying to investigators and trying to thwart the testimony of a witness. Stone now has just 5 days to report to a federal prison camp in Jessup, Georgia. That is, unless the president intervenes. So Roger Stone was a good friend and person that gave advice to Trump on certain things and denies that he did any of this, and he is convinced that the court's out to get him just because he worked for Trump, basically. There's more to it, but he denies any of this happened. And he thinks that the court basically is out to prove a point because he won't cower and break down and bust a deal to give out stuff on the president because he says he doesn't have anything to give him. Reached by phone while under house arrest in Fort Lauderdale, Florida last week, Stone told Real Clear Politics that he doesn't want to go. His age and a history of respiratory problems, he says, place him at a greater risk of catching the virus in jail, and he would like a pardon from his longtime friend and former boss. I would too. I guess if I had to make an appeal, it would be that on humanitarian grounds, as an act of mercy as well as justice, I would pray that the president uses his incredible powers of clemency, said the president's one-time advisor. When RPC put the question to the president in the Oval Office during an exclusive interview this week, Trump mostly demurred but hinted that he might get involved. I think Roger Stone was treated very unfairly, he said. I think he was a victim of an illegal investigation. The Mueller investigation, to me, it was totally illegal, and it should have never been allowed to happen. He was also the victim of a very unfair court trial. The president added in a reference to the jury forewoman who shared posts on social media critical of Trump and his longtime political ally. So the jury was even tainted. It was a disgraceful situation that was allowed to take place. With that, you will see what I'm going to do, said the president. Ooh, sounds juicy. What you gonna do? Trump world seems to have an opinion already. Informed rumors have been swirling that the president won't let Stone serve time, and top allies continue to lobby for a pardon. Roger Stone should not disproportionately bear the burden of the corrupt Mueller investigation, Florida Rep. Matt Gaetz wrote on social media the day after RPC interviewed Trump. It would seem that the president agrees. Roger was a victim of a corrupt and illegal witch hunt, one which will go down as the greatest political crime in history. He can't sleep well at night, he tweeted, the president. It has not resulted in any official actions, while Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort, two campaign officials convicted for various crimes connected to Trump, are serving their sentences from home because of the virus. Stone waits in limbo. If they just took that other dude back to, I think, Michael Cohen, if I'm correct, I read he went back to jail because he was in a restaurant. I don't know. One reason a pardon may not be forthcoming or at least be delayed: the Attorney General and the President are not of one legal mind when it comes to Stone. And on Wednesday, Bill Barr told ABC News that I think the prosecution was righteous and I think the sentence and judge ultimately gave was fair. He could be giving the president pause. It could also provide Stone material for future endeavors. Asked how he would spend time in prison if Trump doesn't intervene, Stone said he'd return to writing. I've written a book on my current experience, but the problem, I still don't know the ending. So that's that with that. I'm kind of inclined to think the president will pardon him. I'm not sure what he did was wrong, but I'm not a judge nor a jury member, so what I think really doesn't matter. I think the dude's really too old to be going to prison, but I mean, I don't know what he did, you know? I really need to look that up, I guess. I think it had to do with that he wouldn't tattletale on the president more than anything. But anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know it's pretty late. I was late getting it done, man. I had to get in some Deadwood on HBO. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thanks for tuning in.